Hi, my name is Franca Maria Ando, and this is my new podcast called The Three Lemons. The Three Lemons is about creatives who take things that are normally plain and boring and make them into exciting, beautiful things that people can enjoy. Hi, welcome to The Three Lemons podcast, and thank you so much for your interest so far. Today I have a very interesting young man, Mr. Kwame Boadi, the MD of AI Intelligence. He's here to talk to me about what he does and what he's done and what he intends to do. Hello Kwame, how are you?
Hello Franca, I like how you said I'm a young man.
Oh, you're a young man. So tell me, what does AI mean? It's a very popular word at the moment.
Okay, now it means artificial intelligence, right? But you know, we were previously called Ingenious Africa.
Okay.
Ingenious Africa. So AI is actually an extension of it. Ingenious Africa was to say that we do good things from Africa. We are from Africa. We're global. Africa is identity, but we're global. But AI is to move with the times. You know, the business we're dealing with now, you must react very quickly. Very dynamic, yet be very calculated and well researched in your reaction.
Okay.
And we think the AI epitomizes that perfectly.
It captures
Quick, well calculated
your intentions
reactions.
as a business.
Exactly.
So you're a creative business, would you say? How would you describe what you do for the lay person?
These days we call ourselves, I use a big one first, we call ourselves development communication specialists.
Okay.
But we've always been social entrepreneurs. Those are we deal in the media space.
Okay.
So we develop all manner of media content. So by content that can be on TV, can be on radio, can be on the big screen in the cinema, can be on your small flat screens, the mobile devices, and so it can be radio, can be television, can be film, and journal. Now I say we are development communication specialists, so we tend to do work that has developmental or educational
benefits.
Significance. You know, so that's the very broad. I don't know whether
I think it's a good explanation. But tell me, like growing up, because I always like to go back to how people's journeys began.
Yeah.
I think that's always interesting, especially for young people looking to find some direction in their lives. So you went to school, you went to Achimota.
Yes.
Okay. What were you like in school?
Well, people used to call me Luca Brasi.
Okay.
So I don't know whether that would describe something. If the people who read Godfather or watched Godfather, if people call it Luca Brasi, this guy was the chief executioner of the Corleone family. Can you imagine?
Okay, so how did you get that name?
Well, but I didn't actually have that. The name was given to me by my older brother before I went to Achimota.
Oh, I see.
I'm the last born of 4 siblings.
Okay.
And he called me Luca Brasi for a reason.
Okay.
Because I don't like to be cheated. So although they were older, they knew that if you do me wrong, I'll retaliate.
Okay. So you like things to be fair?
Yes, sort of at the time.
Yes.
I even said I'd go to the army. I'm sure we'll get there.
Wow. And it's amazing how that kind of filters into what you're doing now in a way where you're interested in how what you do impacts other people.
Exactly.
So, when you were in Achimota, what were your favorite subjects? What did you like to learn?
I had that problem, but I was an all-rounder. The you call it. I'm very good with the science, and the arts, and all that. But so this was 6th form, so you do 7 years. In the 3rd year, when you're Form 3, you do something they call the science, some kind of science subject test.
Okay.
So physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics. And then I think our cohort were about 500 people in that, Form 1, Form 2, and Form 3. And half would have to do science, and half would do arts. And so those who qualified to do the science, the first half. And I think I was 25th on the science list. Can you imagine?
Excuse
That's
me.
solid there. I'm a powerful guy.
Oh, you're powerful.
So I could do all the sciences, but I could do the arts too. I'm sure you will lead me to it because you want to find the origins of where we are now.
Yes.
So I rest my case if you ask.
So you You did science?
Yeah, so I did science,
Okay.
O-level, A-level.
Okay.
And so everybody said I'd be a doctor.
Okay.
When my parents said, and their friends said I'd either be a doctor, a teacher, or a priest.
Oh, wow. Those are three very powerful
So
career choices.
Everybody assumed I'd be a doctor, so I did physics, chemistry, biology for A-level.
Okay. So then?
Yeah, but I was suffering all the time. Now the realization, I've loved reading, so I'm sure that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. There's always a basis for something. I always tell people. My dad was a connoisseur of books, so there are lots of books, and my mom would always say, Kwame, the book painting, when the day I just read the book, I used to love food. So if I'm not eating, then it's the book. So I used to read a lot of things, can you imagine great speeches by Winston Churchill when I was like 10 years old,
Wow.
And then I read all the Lord Lambs and the novels and things. So I always say when we were in upper six, 3 months to A-level, and A-level is a crazy one. And I was doing physics, chemistry, biology. So I'll be sitting with my friends, and some would even have their legs in water, and they can study Knock-on and Packer. That was a physics test then, very difficult book, and they'll work on it for like 4 hours. And I'll be sitting with them. My first 2 hours, I'll be reading a Lord Lamb novel. Yes, I'll read a novel for like 90 minutes, and then I'll do 2 questions in Knock-on and Packer, and I'll go to bed. I think I was in trouble. It wasn't because I wasn't appreciating the physics. It was fine. It's cool. If I applied my mind to it, it would tickle you, but I was fine with it. But it was too abstract. I was finding more meaning in the books, and so on. And so I knew I was in trouble, because I could do science if I wanted, but I realized that I didn't want to be a technical person. I wanted to have a bird's eye view. The books had given me that bird's eye view, so I could see a certain picture that I didn't want to go to be closeted in a certain career that the sciences lead you to.
Yeah.
So I had to do the A-level and pass, and then thereafter I've been moving away from science.
So when you finished your A-levels, with that realization that you really didn't want to be a scientist, or you didn't want to, kind of like you're saying, find yourself in a bit of a box, what was your next move? How did you maneuver yourself, or did it take you a while to be able to do that?
Well, I didn't really maneuver. I just flowed naturally. But again, although I said I realized I wouldn't do science, I mentioned that I wanted to go to the army. In the moment, since for about 4 of us, we said we'll go to the army, go to the Air Force.
Okay.
I like the military
The uniform
and the hard look.
Officer and a gentleman.
And the mission accomplished and that whole thing.
Yes,
I'm sure all the novels I've been reading, so I've been seeing all the spies movies.
Yes.
They wanted to come close to that.
Okay.
So that was the thinking. But my mom, who knew me very well, and told me, Kwame, if you go to the army, you die.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I talk too much. And sometimes when people talk, even if it doesn't make sense, you have to listen. And she knows that I won't listen to nonsense.
But do you think she said that because she was afraid? Or you feel like she had a point?
No, she had a point. At that time, it didn't take me long to realize that she had a point. We used to talk. She also used to listen to me. I used to give her advice and she would take. And so it made sense that she tells me something I think through, and if it makes sense. And the older I get, I always tell this story that she said, like, I'm sure. And those were the heady days of the revolution, the so-called Ghana revolution. So the army had all sorts of political, and she thought I wouldn't conform, But at that time, we said we'd want to go to the army. I mean, it could have been even the police and so on, because we had realized that, however young, that the best people don't always go to those places. Soldiers used to be called bongo boys, But we used to say that they carry the arms. They are a very powerful entity. So if you see all the Western democracies, the very well-grounded ones, especially the US and so on, they are soldiers and so on, are the most well-educated, most articulate, because the things they control, the armaments and so on they control.
You've got to be...
Exactly. I mean, they have power. It's a very big power center. Yet, in a certain... It's always the last career for everybody.
Last choice.
And especially in the middle classes where you have the more educated people. It's not a sought after thing to go to the army or to go to the police. yet they will control you.
Absolutely.
And so that was the thinking at that time. So
That's
it's the bird's eye view thing. So to your question, it wasn't. I didn't have a defined area I wanted to go. I just knew I wanted to do something that I would exert, I would impact, and so on. However I do it was irrelevant to me.
So university.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I went to tech. So I did agri-economics. So you see, now I'm moving. I've added economics to it. So I did agri-economics. I thought that was, again, I don't regret doing science. I always say, I actually recommend to anybody that you have a science background in the secondary school, and then you do whatever thereafter. Because science allows you that flexibility. If you were to do arts, you can't do science after, of course, unless you are in the US. But if you do science, you can do anything else.
Yes.
But for me, I think the strength of science is more for the analytical ability it gives you. That deduction, that analysis, that searching, that investigative thing that you need to do to live your life.
Sort of a thoroughness about
exactly.
things. Yes.
Methodical, systematic. So it's a very good base. So I did agri-economics, and there too I thought agriculture was an interesting place because the food you eat is a basic thing, and you see even now we're still suffering.
Yes.
It was like 30 years ago, and I saw that need where agriculture again here a very critical thing is they call peasant. Let's just call it a peasant farming and so on and. In the US, just about 5% of the people are farmers. They are some of the wealthiest people, and they feed the world.
Absolutely.
Yet in Ghana, the specter of a farmer or the look of a farmer is something else. It's because we haven't brought business to it. So that's why I said, so with that science, I said, well, so if I could be somewhere where I could influence how agriculture is run, it would help.
Yeah.
And if you did agri-economics, you could do what they call extension education. So that was my target. The agri-economists would go around. They do
those
planning,
officers that go around helping,
monitoring, etc. And then one aspect is extension education, where you'll be deployed coming to the farms and teach them the proper cultural practices and those things. So I was sort of drawn to that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's what I did in tech.
And I know that when you finished school, you had a chicken farm.
A poultry farm.
A poultry farm. And because we don't have much time, I don't wanna tell the full story, but I do want you to, because for me it's important that young people learn from our experiences. And I know that when you did it, you had a major situation at some point. Can you give us
Yeah, one of the most interesting stories of my entrepreneurial life. No, so when we finished, unfortunately, instead of 4 years, we spent about 5.5 years in tech. Because in our first year, 1991, I think we spent about 6 months extra. There was a lot of valuta. Those days when you say valuta, they kick out of the campus, we go back. And then in our final year, our lecturers went on strike for 9 months. So I was a very angry person when I was finishing school, because my mates who had gone to Legon had spent just 3 years. And I had spent 5 years. Can you imagine? So some of them had started working already and would come
making money.
But that also gave me something. That extra time that we wasted during the so-called aluta and the strike. That's what made me decide that I would straight away be an entrepreneur. I was setting up a business for myself. So when my final year, I started going around, and I identified the poultry business because I'd realized that especially the broiler, the ones that you do for the meat, you have a quick turnover within 6-7 weeks, within 8 weeks. The ones that you do for the hospitality people, they'll be ready. And so if you had a farm where you staggered in a certain way, week by week, so it means that every week you could get some chickens of that, the ones they do in laboratory. So I thought I would have a model. So I right after school, I leased a space that could take about 5,000 beds.
Where was this?
The place they call it Gulf City now.
Okay.
It's off Tema, the old barrier area. At that time, I think it used to be an area that General Champon, may so rest in peace, designated as an agric zone during his operation Feed Yourself.
I see.
So there were lots of farms there, and I found an abandoned poultry farm. It had all the structures on it. They even had a 2-bedroom cottage So I went to live there, and I employed 4 people. It was a good business, but let me fast forward because I'm sure you want that finale. I rented a place for 5 years because my plan was I was going to grow it, and then I wanted to go to the US to do my masters, and then I'll continue with whatever. Education is good, so a bit of practice first. But by the 3rd year, I was making enough money, so I said, I can go earlier, so I don't have to wait for 5 years. So Christmas time is the harvest time for all poultry farmers. And so during the normal days, you sell to hospitality and so on. But Christmas, you can grow the chickens to a very big size, and it can be sold for 2 times the price. So if I was going to terminate by the 3rd year, then that last Christmas should be a big one.
That was your...
So I wanted to fill the farm and then get my final money. So, but Christmas chickens should be grown, above 12 weeks, because they must be very big. So you must get your day-old chicks early. So I used to have somebody who supplied us, and so unfortunately during the Christmas, that's why demand is so high. So the guy couldn't deliver early, and I still took a risk. You have to take a risk. Sometimes you feel, and so I think I got my day-old chicks sometime in September, end of September, early October. That was a risk, but I had been doing it enough, and I had the skill to feed them quickly to grow. So I thought I could wrangle it. And so by between 15th and 20th December, you must have sold lots of your chicken out of the farm, because there's also a certain time when the chickens don't put weight anymore. They use the feed for maintenance. So whatever they are eating is just for maintenance. And at that time, they could be eating like 10 or 12 bags of maize and other things a day. So it means there's just one that's going down the drain. So by 20th, I still had about 3,000 birds there. So that was going to be problematic. It means that I lost the Christmas thing. And so the smart thing was to kill them, pack them, and put them in a cold store. Unfortunately, that's when they had started. It was, I think, the fourth time. They started doom saw. That was the first time we had some kind of doom saw setup. I said the farm is set up in Tema. So there are lots of cold stores there. But you see, their specialty is fish, right? Okay. Now, the dynamics for freezing chicken, I think, is a bit different. I didn't know that. So I killed all these birds and put them in the freezer. And then the cost of keeping them in that freezer and then selling them off bit by bit was far lower than keeping them on the farm and so on. So it made sense. Unfortunately, the guy didn't have a standby generator, and he mainly had fish, which had been frozen for a long time. So even if the whole day he doesn't get electricity,
still got ice.
So he went to put my chicken amongst this thing. So, I got an order a few days after to supply one of my best clients, Taco Bell. I don't know whether Taco Bell is still there in Tema, So he said 500, he's got, it was a Friday evening like this, exactly, and he got a wedding gig for the Saturday. Could I supply him 500 beds? So I sent one of my people to go make the supply. A few hours later, he calls me back very angry, said I should come to Tema, and so I go to Taco Bell, I go to a restaurant and the kitchen, and I think it's cut out 50 pieces or so, and they were all green inside. Because when they were put in there, chicken must be frozen very quickly. The first 2-3 hours should be fully frozen, so there should be a lot, so that the inside will all be frozen. Otherwise, the outside will be frozen, the inside is not frozen, and then it's. So I lost all of that. That was my baptism of fire. That's the story you wanted, right?
Oh. That's the story I wanted. It's a sad story, but it's also the reality of running a business, which I think a lot of people don't really figure out when they embark on the journey of entrepreneurship. And in this space that we find ourselves in Ghana, there are things like doomsaw that you really can't control, And for me, these kind of experiences also help young people to, just determine what they want to do and how they want to do it. And when they see you successful MD, they don't know the journey. They see you and they see the fineness of everything, but they don't know that you've gone through such a difficult experience, and that's been part of your growing up baptism of fire, like you described. So how did you get into this creative thing that you do?
Okay, so during the pendency of the now defunct poultry farm, I think about the second year or so, 2 friends of mine who had been in the UK, John K. and Emmanuel Jr. Emmanuel here, the home sweet home, so I'm sure lots of people are going for that. They relocated to Ghana from the UK, and they were working at an entity, a center called Village Communications, and they wanted to produce all manner of content and so on. And they had a flagship project they were called Taxi Driver. So they were recruiting, they were doing things. And my farm was in Tema, so I'd come to Accra now. And when I come to Accra, I used my base to go and have lunch with Sina, and they were telling me about their problems, about recruiting, how people are not faithful, acquisition and all that, especially because they lived out for so long, so they were not really streetwise yet. So I started doing things for them, recruiting, helping them with recruitment, helping them to assess things and all that. And over the weekends, they would come to the farm and kind of eat free chicken and keep on with their woes. So I became drawn to what they were doing by these interactions, and so by the by, they got me to become a production manager and producer, because they realized they needed that structure that will allow them to operate, which I'm a fixer, so I was fixing for them basically. But we did Taxi Driver. I think we did the first episode, and it took about 1.5 years before it was sold. At that time.
Taxi Driver?
Oh, yes. Oh, people don't know the story. It's difficult. It's always difficult. We knew we had done a good thing. It's a talk show on wheels. We knew it was novel. The whole concept was different and so on. But to get people to sponsor it, pay money for it, and for it to be sustainable, because when you do good things are expensive. So, and we had said from John Kay especially, may so rest in peace, was just a stickler for excellence and so on. So the amount of energy, the amount of resource we put in, if we wanted to replicate it, we needed to have a good business set up around it. So it took a while. But after 1.5 years, I think ABL were the first group to come in. And when it hit the screens, everybody knew that this is a good thing.
We loved it.
But that is what then started drawing me to. I was like, wow. So I said the poultry farm is hardware, and the TV is software. I mean, what I was saying was this, that you could do work that millions of people would watch, and they'll be impacted by it.
Yeah.
And you could grow stars as well. Because immediately people who we had recruited, some from nothing, have become household names.
And you saw that transition.
And exactly. Yeah. And within a very short period too. Yeah. So with that one step of very good project, you could change lives, you could impact people, and the message that we're sending there was very powerful.
Yes, indeed.
So that's when I became drawn. I taught at Achimota as well at the same time. So there was a time when I was running poetry, helping to produce Taxi Driver, and this and
teaching.
But all doing the same thing, really. If you come to look at it, at the end of the day, the same thing. But I became a bit more drawn to the media, like I said, because of its potential universal impact. Yeah. And I say I'm a social entrepreneur, so yet I could see that in Hollywood, people in Hollywood are very rich, right? Mm-hmm. And even today, I still tell the young people, I think we haven't reached there yet, but I see so much potential in that creative space, that creative economy, of which media is part, but that creative economy in general, that it would impact and also even enrich, create wealth for ourselves. So that's why I'm still here.
Any regrets?
Oof. Yeah, regrets. I think the heady days regrets. Partnerships. I wish we worked together. At present, I've had a business partner, Oliver. I think we've been together if I say together, when we say we are partners, sometimes people say
your business partners.
Business partners. We've been together for maybe I think 14 years now.
Oh, wow.
And but the very early stages, right from get-go, I've always wanted partners, even with the poetry. Because I said I wanted to be scientific, if you analyze it, you realize that going alone is dangerous.
It's difficult.
You don't spread risk, you don't share ideas, and you can't make it bigger. And so I've always known I needed partners. And I sought partners and so on. But I've realized that, I don't know whether it's a Ghanaian thing, but people are not always open to partnerships. Everyone wants to do their own thing.
Yes.
They see the potential of what you're doing, but they also want to do their thing and so on. So in terms of regret, I wish I had invested more in trying to convince, get more, because maybe I didn't widen the circle of the search for potential partners and things early enough to have grown.
But speaking of partners, which we talked about earlier, even before we started the interview, what has made it work with you and Oliver? Because I think, like you're saying, you can scale up quicker when you have other people involved. And yes, you have more ideas coming together. And there's an energy when you have like-minded people come together and decide that this is what we want to do. So what's the secret between 14 years of partnership?
Okay. And nobody has asked me this question before. We were just taking it for granted. But you asked it earlier, but a few things that sprang to my mind, and I was saying it's always about chemistry with people. It's not only about the matching of resources or different ideas, but firstly, there should be something that connects people. So maybe that again. We have a lot of things we like. We are both Ghanaians. We are long-suffering Arsenal supporters.
Oh, okay.
Yet we have areas of divergence, very serious divergence. But in fact, I realized that over time, that is actually an asset for partners. So Oliver tends to be a bit more laid back, and so I want it immediately.
Okay.
So that balances out.
Yes.
So. And then I think mutual respect is very important, and
trust.
Trust, you see, but above all, system, contract. Yes, contract. I've always told people when I was young, my brothers, I made them sign IOU because I realized very early that when they take my money, because they were older, that time they were bigger. Now I'm bigger than them physically, so they will try. But those times they'll take your money and they won't give it to you back. And then when you go and say, they say, I didn't take your money, and so on. So now, if you want my money, you write an IOU, I'll give it to my mom. So when it's time for retrieval, it's a long story. But I found that, so when we started doing Tasha and so on, we designed and elaborate artist contract. And for most of them, that was the first time that they'd gone to any production, somebody had put a contract in front of you. And they were always resistant, they didn't want to sign. I said, but that defines what we are doing. It's good for you, it's good for me, creates guidance. And so, again, so we always do everything by contract. We have an agreement. We have something, not only between us, between everybody else we deal with and so on. It doesn't mean that to make things sacrosanct, but you need that structure.
You need a basic structure.
Yeah, so it's a business. So you have to have a contract and the basis for everything you do. So we always get that blueprint in place, and then it allows for things to flow. And then you realize that it's the best thing. The more you can get in, the better, because the world is very complex now and very dynamic, and everything is in a very fluid motion.
Yes.
So the more people you have working together to spread risk, the better.
Yes. Kwame, thank you so much. I think it's been an amazing interview, and I think that for especially our young listeners, there's been a wealth of wisdom that they can take and also run with. So thanks
for having me.
You're so welcome.
Yeah.